Ganesh, welcome to this chit chat session on the net. And I've always wanted to talk to you about this new idea that you have introduced in the market a while ago. And I think it's a great idea. So we'll talk about it. But before we get there, I just want to spend a little time understanding your perspective of today's retail business. And let me just explain that a little bit. We are living in a world where technology is completely democratic, capability is universal, and business recipes are all the same. And yet, the challenge for business is differentiation. The challenge for business is better efficiency and better return on the investment. So, when we look at these challenges and we look at the retail business, what are your perspectives on the retail business to set the context for what we're going to discuss today?
Hey, first of all, thanks for inviting me on this chat. Great to be here talking to you. And what you actually nailed it, right? This is exactly what we are seeing in retail. So I would say there is a seismic shift which is happening, right? Well, I think let's look at the challenges, right? One is, like you rightly said, there is commoditization, of products, right? If I have to just take examples of fashion, for example, everybody is broadcasted with the same trend books or trend forecast. Everybody gets the same information at similar times. And if you go and see, everybody's using the same colors, similar silhouettes, right, and similar time frames. Most of it, right? And therefore, we are getting sameness all over the place. Now, what is causing? If you look at the consumer side of it, right, consumers are getting to see all of this, and they are in a different space. In fact, they are ahead of the brands and retailers. And brands and retailers are chasing the consumers, right? Now, understanding consumers rather than going with judgments of what consumers would buy, right, is tilting, the efficiency, tilting, creating huge amount of waste in the industry. But just to give you some perspective, 1 out of 2 products made in the fashion industry do not sell well. It's a $3 trillion, close to $3 trillion business. Huge amount of wastage and supply-demand gap. Right. Now, how do we bring consumers and brands together? And that remains a fundamental challenge.
To go back to a couple of points that you raised, that essentially we are dealing with this commoditization that is happening across product categories, while fashion is happening across almost every product category. Number one. Number two, as we see here, and I'm sure we see this in all other markets, people wait for this end of season sale where things are sort of sold at some throwaway prices. Basically, people want to get rid of stocks. And over a period of time, I'm sure the profitability of each one of these companies are getting affected. And I think the root cause of that is a product-centric approach rather than a customer-centric approach. That's one. Two is we're also living in a regime, and that regime is growing, where there's a huge amount of data that is available. And the data is rich data. I can identify an individual customer and I can map that customer's behavior on any platform. Right? So huge data richness is available to us. So if I were to look at this context, so there's a business context where business is being challenged in terms of differentiation, profitability, efficiency, etc. There's a consumer who doesn't see any difference between one brand and the other, and therefore they are paying less and less. How does one get out of this, particularly in the retail business? How does one get out of this? So when I came across your OutRetail concept, I was instantly attracted because it gave me a totally different perspective. That consumer is in the center of the universe. Everything is based on artificial intelligence, using all the data that is available to us, and making decisions based on data rather than making decisions based on somebody's opinion. So would you kind of exemplify and would you expand on that so that we get a good understanding of how OutRetail works with you?
Now, when I first read Outlives, I could reflect that medicine and retail are no different. Today's medicine, I call it, let's say, medicine 1.0, is a very reactive medicine. You go to the doctor when you have a problem, right? And you have only snapshots of data points. On that particular day, what did you feel? What happened yesterday? What happened 3 days before? Right now, medicine is transforming it's important for us to move from reactive to predictive and personalized, because how your body functions, how my body functions, or anybody else, it's very, very different. And each one of us are consumers, right? If you have to cure our problems ourselves, the best way is to move from reactive to predictive. And anything you have to predictive, the fundamental is data. Simple. For example, let's say I'm wearing this ring, which keeps track of every second of my day. Yeah, what's happening to my heartbeat, what's happening to my steps, what's happening to my sleep pattern. Now imagine somebody came to me and said, asking me what happened to you in the last few days, why I'm not sleeping well, and prescribe a medicine. And that medicine is also an average prescription to somebody may or may not fit in exactly to the data points. Right? Now, therefore, there is a lot of wastage of time, wastage of effort, and wastage of resources, right, when you are reactive. So the question is, how do we move from reactive to predictive in retail? And if you just look at retail, it's again the same thing, right? Now, snapshots of intelligence, right? Snapshots of data. And, I just want to highlight something that when people say data, a lot of people say that we already use a lot of data. Now, the question is, I think we have to get into details of what that data is. For the insights are as good as the quality of data. We think about AI models, right? All the AI models, the fundamental is the quality of it. Data is the raw material for AI. Looking at the quality of data, people say I have, let's say, last few years of data. I have so many consumers. The question I ask people typically is, how big is your business and what's your market share? And most of the business are either decimal market share, even market leaders are single-digit market share in most of the markets. But your intelligence is a fraction of the market, even if you have a lot of it. For if you really want to put consumer at the center, you really need to have an intelligence of the market, just not yours. Your data also makes a difference, but it's very contextual. But having a holistic knowledge of the market, contextual for the business you are in, and not also snapshot, right? You really need to have perpetual, I call it always on intelligence. Now, having all of this data and intelligence makes no difference if you don't have actionable insights. We'll touch upon, how do we move to actionable insights in a minute. Yeah.
Ganesh, two aspects to it. One is the rational aspect, which is the need to move away from, at a point, snap data to a continuous stream of data that allows you to understand behavior, call out insights, and then use those insights to predict what's going to happen in the market. So that's one set. The other set is the people who are actually behind taking that kind of a decision. So what kind of challenges do you have at both levels? At the people level, which is the people who are managing these systems, they are habituated to dealing with it on one side, and you are asking them to change and go and move over to a completely different system with which they are not familiar. So that's a shifting from a product-centric approach to a consumer-centric approach, powered by consumer insights that are made available from this continuous data analytics that is possible today. It's a completely different way of working. So throw some light on how you are seeing companies adapt to that change.
See, we've been in the market for 8+ years, and this is fundamental challenge, which is to say, this is basically a transformation from the existing method to any new method. There will always be some amount of friction. I think the role of the technology provider, whether it is in-house or a vendor that the brand or retailer is using, I think the focus should be on a joint initiative, right? Wherever we have seen that I would say what has worked for us is, when we enter a brand or retailer, we typically ask them, who's going to be taking ownership of this project? Are we positioning this as something strategically important within the organization? So there is somebody whose performance and there is a resource available for us to translate this within the organization. That is one. And second is constant feedback. Every organization has a different way of working. So what we do is we build regular rhythms of feedback. Right? We cannot have one size fits all kind of an approach, right? Say, give this software and it works. So we do go enter the company and then understand how they work, map their workflow. Because if we embed anything in the workflow, it sticks. And that's the challenge, understanding, and therefore good amount of transparency between both the organizations. Again, whether you are insourcing it or outsourcing it, doesn't matter. For adoption is something very, very important. And adoption is a two-way street. where constantly iterate on the way that the insights are going, how actionable it is in the workflow, and also take it through the end and then say what decisions are we taking and what are the outcomes. For I put it in a framework called input, output, outcome. For input is all these insights. For what did you do with the input and what did you generate, which is seeable, right? And that's your output. And what did the business generate as outcomes, right? And when people start to see outcomes, the motivation levels significantly goes up. And it is important to ensure that all the participants are encouraged through this journey and motivated enough, and all of this input, output, outcome is visible, right? That has worked for us. For wherever you put this straight in the kitchen without an orchestrator, that will be a recipe for disaster.
So Ganesh, let me come to the product now. So Stylumia has been doing this now for, you said, about 8 years now,
Yeah.
right? And your concept of OutRetail, which is a more predictive modeling of the business rather than subjective and on the spot decision making. What are the three key dimensions of this OutRetail? If you were to take the most important dimension, what are the three key dimensions of this OutRetail?
I was the three dimensions would be data-driven insight alignment. Businesses already have insights. Yeah. We are no longer making decisions based on what did we sell last year. We are looking at patterns. We are anticipating shifts in demand and responding to that predictively, not just with our own data and also with the holistic view of them. The second dimension is optimization of resources. From creation to curation, right? We can use the data, the insights that we are getting to create better, and also both pre-season and also through in-season and towards selling, which is the curation. For example, it's not about making the right products, but are we also making it in right proportions? And are we also selling with the right language, which is we call the language of the consumer? When you do all of this and get the timing right, which is when your resources are optimized. When I say resources, for example, in retail business, particularly in fashion business, there is a metric called full price sell-through. How much of what you made really sells at full price? Now that at the industry level is hovering around 50%. There could be exceptions here and there. Right. Now, what we have seen is significant shift, anywhere between 5 to 10% absolute shift in full price, right? Which is close to 20 to 50% jump in profitability margin of these products. And that's how we optimize the profit for our customers. And the last one is very, very interesting. We think that we're all doing this for improving our income statement. Not just that. I think I just want to highlight that fashion is one of the top three carbon footprint industries in the world. So not only we improve our economics, we also improve the overall profitability, overall sustainability of the planet. We have saved close to over 200 billion products waste from the industry since our inception.
So Ganesh, let me shift you from the theoretical aspect of it to a use case so that it kind of highlights the key dimensions, how it works, and what are the key benefits. So imagine if to give me a name of a company that you're currently working with, and just explain to me as a use case how Stylumia brought in this change that you're talking about, and what are the benefits that accrue to that company?
For confidentiality purposes, not revealing the name, large European fashion brand. Now, they had all forms of intelligence, which are traditional intelligence, which was available to them. And they were entering a new market. So first is their understanding is, I would like to understand the local taste of consumers. Second is, not only I enter with, in less time, we connect with the consumer. I grow in that market. And we don't want to waste too much of money to make this happen. So those were their objectives. So we entered the scene where through our always on intelligence, we provided them what are the tastes and preferences of the consumers in that country in form of various levels. From a strategic level, say what is the category mix of women's wear we are seeing in this market for the space that you're operating. Not only the category mix of supply, because whenever people say that collect data, we can scrape from the net, etc. But what it tells you is the shelf view. Shelf view is because of incorrect, because if 50% of the products don't sell well, you need to have consumer demand. What is the consumer interest here? For using our proprietary algorithm, we provide not just the shelf view, the basket view of the consumers. So they got the category mix. And then one level down, they continuously get on a weekly basis trend feed, we call it, where they get to know what are the top performing trends, not only the trends and also with directions, and say which one will last for the next few months or next few quarters, so that they can predictively pick the ideas which will potentially win in the market for fine tuning not only the mix right now into what kind of product features that we should bring alive. So this is an ongoing and it's an iterative process. Just to fast forward as we stand, before we entered, they were having a full price sell through of around the 50% mark, and with Stylumia's intervention, that became 70%. Now 20% absolute lift in full price sell in a market that they have not traded before, right? And this is for a global brand. Even at a global level, this was a significantly different full price sell through now.
So that's a kind of a seismic shift in terms of its, the company's profitability. The garment industry is kind of to the fact that maybe less than 40 to 50% of the stock will sell on full price, and that may only last a few months. So either they get their distribution right, they get their production right, and they have enough communication in the market so that it sells. Interesting point. It leads me to the last point on this discussion, which is we do a lot of work on environment and conservation. And one of my sort of pet areas of work is to do with water. And you know that we are losing groundwater faster than we can say Jack Robinson. Every city is just urbanizing and the use of water is going up. So I was doing some work with the denim industry, and I was completely astounded to find that a pair of denims that I wear or a new pair of denims that I buy consumes more than 1,500 liters of water in its manufacturing, which is starting from the time the cotton is sewn to the yarn, to the fabric, to the finishing of the jeans. So if we can reduce wastage, we are also in a way adhering to the compliances that are required for conservation of water. So what are your thoughts on that?
Let's say if you make 100 denim items, 50 of them don't sell well. So why did we make those 50 unwanted units in its first place? That's a question to ask. So by bringing the data dimension we talked about, the consumer at the center dimension we talked about, we are able to make what consumers would want really at the right time and its right place. So we are removing those. We are not eradicating all the 50. We haven't made 100% full price sell through. What we are saying is we will definitely go from the current baseline to a much better place, right? And the amount of water that you talked about, it can actually be sufficient for many humans for a year. So that's the amount. That's amount. In fact, even T-shirts consume so much of, we wear much more T-shirts than denim. For each one of these, it's just not water, right? All the other resources associated with that product. Look at the shelf. We wasted the shelf. We wasted the real estate. We have wasted the logistics movement of those products which should not have moved, which should not have produced in the first place, right? So I think it's going to have an entire value chain impact of conservation of Earth's resources for sure.
Before we sort of sign off, just a quick question to you. We have discussed so far only in the fashion industry, right? Our discussion has been focused on the fashion industry. I'm sure the same thing applies to many other industries. For example, fast-moving consumer goods, the FMCG industry, like food products, for example. And food is a perishable commodity. What are the other industries that you are looking at?
Yeah, it's a great question. While I heard this question, we started with fashion industry. We've moved across industries. We are working in home improvement. We are working in watches. We are working in jewelry, shoes, and we are looking at auto component industry. So we are working in categories from lawn mowers to drilling machine across. Right. So we are pacing ourselves in a way that we are able to contribute in a sensible way and understand all of these industries deeply and contribute. But eventually, that we will be touching various parts of this, consumption chain. The insights are similar, right? Everybody wants to. This is not just for one industry, right? Like you rightly said, it's common theme. We will have to put consumer at the center, right? And also channels are, very different these days. The content to commerce is amplifying so much that I think the brand has become a broadcaster right now. So you not only need to get your right products, I think you also need to have the right content in the right place, in the right channel for us to accomplish what we are talking about holistically.
So Ganesh, thank you so much for your time. Out retail is certainly is a revolutionary concept in retailing, using the power of data, AI, machine learning, as well as completely new perspectives to the business, which improves business efficiency as well as competitiveness. So thank you for your time, and I'm sure we will be talking about other industries other than fashion very soon.